Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast, where we raise the vibration of kindness on a global scale. I'm Dr. Ebony Green, your host, and I'm super excited to be with you today. If you want to follow us on all major platforms, look us up at Hello Kind Soul Podcast. And if you want to follow me, look me up at E Green Equity. I hope you enjoy the episode. Have a great day. Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Green. I'm so excited to be in community with you this week. First, I want to announce, folks, anybody who would like to get our merch, our hoodies, our t-shirts, you can find that at hellokindsoulmerch.com. Wear kindness on your sleeve as we're trying to raise the vibration of kindness on a global scale. Today, I wanted to talk about this idea of do no harm. And one of the things that has kind of come up in my mind is thinking about in order for people to be happy about other people's pain, I wonder where the pain sits in their body, right? I think sometimes when you think about this notion of do no harm, I feel like it's a baseline for the ways that we're supposed to live our life. Like the goal is not to harm other people. And there are moments where I wonder if part of the reason why that becomes a normalized behavior for folks, there's a bunch of reasons, actually, y'all, but one of the biggest reasons, I think, is because I believe a lot of people are disconnected from their heart center. They're actually disconnected to the emotions in their body. And so one piece is to realize that we can normalize intellectualizing love, care, pain, all the things, right? Like we can say to people, I love you so much. And the question begs always in my mind, like, well, what does that mean for you? Like when you love someone, do you feel that emotion in your body? And I think sometimes part of the problem is that we believe that we are connected to our emotions. And so when we say we love someone or we hate someone or we're angry or we're frustrated or whatever, we actually don't feel those emotions. We think we feel them, right? And so the reason I say that is because for many, many years, I lived my life believing that I was emotionally attached. And I've said this before, but it wasn't until a moment where I felt deep, deep pain, which caused a great amount of grief and sadness, that the one thing I could identify that I knew was happening was that I was actually physically feeling the pain in my body. And what ultimately happened is after I kind of progressed through that season is I realized that was really the first time in a really, really, really long time that I actually felt an emotion that I was talking about. And that's how I realized that I wasn't connected. You're probably wondering, like, how does that connect to do no harm? I think it's really easy for people to harm people, or when you see people clapping because someone else is hurt or someone else is experiencing pain, you have to realize that once you feel pain deeply, your goal, I would hope, is to do no harm, right? And to not celebrate the harm of others. Like that should be a baseline non-negotiable. Now, I know we're living in a world that kind of normalizes being petty and mean and harmful and all these things that are glorified as great and they're not great at all. But what I ask you is what is the work that has to happen for us to get back to a place that kindness is at the root of what we do, and not this surface kindness, right? But this deep, deep level of gratitude and compassion and caring about other people just because they exist, right? This idea of a collective or humanity being one body, right? Theoretically. If that's the case, then I don't have to know who you are to not want you to be harmed. And when I see you're being harmed, or if I see that on TV, if I see that on the news, or if I see that on IG, I should be outraged that someone else is experiencing that. I also will say that the other side of that is let's explore love for a minute, right? I genuinely believe that love is the highest frequency. I genuinely believe that love wins. Love solves it. But in order to deeply understand what love feels like, we have to do a little bit of work to get there. And part of that is connected to how we love ourselves authentically, all of ourselves, like the whole version of us, the different versions of us, right? And some of those versions, I would suggest, caused harm to other people, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I would also suggest that there are parts of you that you're really maybe not happy with or upset with in terms of what and how you used to show up in the world. And so when I say deep, deep love, it's to realize that all of us has made us us. All of those versions have brought us here. And so when we're wondering and thinking about where does the work start, for those of you out there who are struggling with like, well, how do I get to this place where I'm not okay with the demise of other people? And listen, the beauty of a podcast is I don't see you and you don't see me. Well, you see me, but I don't see you. So even if you're listening and you're like, oh man, like, I don't know why I'm okay with other people being harmed, I would challenge you and say, as I said a little earlier, that there's a part of you inside you who doesn't feel protected or didn't feel protected at some point. And so why would you protect other people? Like, that's just what people do, right? I've said it a million times, hurt people hurt people. That's what happens as a byproduct of their own pain. And so the other thing I think is really important to talk about is this idea of like, where did you learn this, right? So this book that I wrote, there's part of it, the question is, where did you learn the lies about yourself? Right. And that was probably episode 2, season 1. But there's some place that you learned the things that you believe, and then you've lived your life to either dispel the lies or to substantiate the lies. And so if you're a person who's trying to figure out which way you're kind of going, it begs the question, where did you learn in your history that you had to disconnect from your heart space, that you had to disconnect from your emotions, right? For people who've lived tough lives, and I arguably say everyone has on some level, some way, shape, or form, there are moments in your life that the experiences are so painful that you disconnect your emotional center. And that's for survival, typically. That's for, it's so that people are able to kind of move away and not feel the pain as much, whatever the pain is, right? The challenge is that person, if it was a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old and you're 35 or 40 now, if you haven't identified that during that time that that's what you did for a survival strategy, you potentially are living in a current state, still believing that you have to survive. And that survival is not real at this particular moment for some people, right? Right now, you're safe, you're okay, but you haven't healed that part of you, which is why we always talk about therapy being a really important part of your journey for those of you who are willing to engage in it, because there are parts of you that have learned that genuine emotion is problematic, depending on your circumstance, right? That loving someone deeply, you will be hurt. For some people, that happens with experience with their parents or their relatives or deep friends or intimate relationships. And then after that happens, it's like, you know what? My heart's cool. I don't want to do this anymore. And so what happens is that we start to intellectualize, right? That we feel these things that we don't actually feel. Like, oh, I love you becomes very cliche, right? Oh, that really hurt me, right? But even with sometimes feeling pain, you don't even feel it because you've learned to kind of compartmentalize and have learned to create a very transactional life. The challenge with that is bringing this kind of full circle to where I started, which is like the challenge with living a transactional life is that we don't invest deeply in the relationships. We don't invest deeply in the idea that it's important that everyone get to be themselves as they are, as authentically as they want to be, and that they deserve peace or safety in certain spaces. The truest form of love is allowing people to be exactly who they are and loving them deeply as they are, unless, obviously, they're causing harm, right? There are a lot of people that I know that I think are actually really good people. And what is wild to me is that there's so many times that they say things that don't align to what they do. And so the sad part is watching people who you can see could be good people cause harm to other folks because they don't actually want to really think about how do you connect those two pieces together, right? The words and the actions. Like, how does that live, right? Love is an action. And so one of the most important things I think for all of us is to figure out, are you willing to live your life out loud through love? And a lot of people struggle with that. And I, there's a million reasons why, and I get it. But there's no greater example than to live that way for real, right? I could talk to you till the cows come home about all the things we should do. But the moment people who see me outside, see me in different events, and I'm not that person, there's a phrase, you don't want to meet your heroes, right? And I've met some of my heroes, and some of them are amazing. And they really are exactly who they say they are. And then some of them are absolutely not who they said they were, right? If we can get to a place where as individuals, we can commit to living in love, right? We prioritize people over profits, which I know is not it's not a hot take for most people. Like, that's not something they want to do. Then we actually can change the world in a positive way, right? And I say that, it's interesting because, the world is imploding as we're recording this. And one of the things that I was talking with someone the other day is that, when you think about the Bible, for example, right? The rules are real simple, y'all. Do no harm. Be nice. Be kind. Treat your neighbor as you want to be treated, right? Like, there are all these things. There's a ton more, but there's all these things that I think in their purest form were meant to really set forth a roadmap of how to be kind to each other, how to live in a way that we model for folks what goodness looks like. And so, I think the call to action from this episode is really thinking about, if you are one of those people who are watching videos or watching the TV or interacting in society and seeing someone experiencing harm and you're laughing, the question I have is why? Consider, what about that you're watching is funny, for real. And I want you to resist the urge to say something stupid, respectfully. Like, I want you to really think deeply about, what is it about what you're watching brings you a sense of joy? Because I promise you, if you're honest enough to have that conversation with yourself and dig deep, there's places where you were hurt or you feel you were hurt or harmed and no one cared. And so it almost justifies sometimes people in their mind to be like, well, no one cared that I got hurt, so why would I care that they got hurt? The point, two things can be true. It wasn't okay that you got hurt, and it's not okay that they get hurt. And so part of the work for those of you who feel like, I think there's a place that in my mind where I'm really like struggling and grappling with being compassionate to other people, we could venture a guess that there's just some horrible humans in the world, which I don't think most people are. And then there's some people who don't feel a sense of compassion from other people. And so they don't believe that they should be compassionate. And the work for us is to do deep, deep introspective work, to peel back the layers of ourselves, to get to the place where the harmed and hurt person lives, and do our best to go to therapy, communities, healing groups, whatever you do to start to heal that part of you. Because I promise you, in that space, there's also so much possibility of what you can do and how you can live your life to further positively impact the world. But in that space of not being able to really be compassionate, be empathetic, feel love, feel joy, feel peace, the inability to do so deprives you of accessing other parts of you that make more greatness possible. And so it's not until you're okay and you're able to love those versions of you so that you can kind of show up as your full actualized self. So it behooves you, if you're willing, to go on this journey. Now, the journey's hard, right? Like, we do our part at Hello Kind Soul. We have our podcast, we have our sessions, we have the book, we have merch, we have all these things. But there's added pieces that I would offer to you that I think are important to add into that plate, right? There are other really dope podcasts out there. There are other amazing presenters that you can engage with sessions with and all of these things. You could do the therapy. But I will tell you this, and it's kind of funny because most people I heard this a while ago, but it's kind of sat with me. And they said, if you sit at a table with 9 drunks, you'll be the 10th. If you sit at a table with 9 lazy people, you'll be the 10th, right? You get it, right? So the reason it stuck with me, because if you sit at a table with 9 people who are hurting and none of them want to heal, you will be the 10th. So surrounding yourself with people who understand how important it is to have a community of healing, of love, of care is really essential to you really starting to go forward and to feel the support of others, telling you that it's okay to go forward, right? We don't have to do anything alone. And I know we're living in a place right now that's trying to act like, anything great was done by itself. Nothing great was done by itself. Nothing, y'all. Every great person had people around them. Every great country had multiple people who worked to influence the system. Any great company had multiple stakeholders who care deeply, right? Everything that has become truly great has had multiple hands in the pot. Anything. And so even in terms of your healing, being around people who can be supportive and not defensive, who can listen and truly not judge, who can offer suggestions, being your critical friend, whatever that is super essential for you to come out on the other side. I think the other piece, as we're starting to wrap up, is understanding that you and you alone have the ability to make changes in your life, right? When people tell you information, sometimes there's a dissonance. Like if I say to someone, whatever, the sky is blue, and you are so invested in the sky being red that you're like, oh, no, it's blue. I would push you to feel the dissonance and keep going, because that disconnection, sometimes it's easier to just be like, oh no, this is hard, I'm out. But if there's a part of you who's listening to this at any point that really wants to live in a world where we do no harm, then you have a responsibility to do the work so that you do no harm. Because your kids are watching, your friends are watching, your colleagues are watching. There are all these people looking to you, right? As well as other people. But the actions, the way you live, the way you move, people are watching that. So you can be the model for other people, and you could be fallible, right? We can make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. As much as my goal is to do no harm, I'm going to make mistakes. That's just the goal. That's the truth of it, right? The goal is to be this person who lives so deeply in love that you're always wrapping people up in love, but there are times where you're depleted and you may not know it. And so that may not happen. But certainly I want to live in a world where we do no harm, which I think is a basic desire. I think the hardest work is getting other people to believe the same. So I encourage you to think about, when you live your life, when you go outside in the world, are you able to continue to do no harm? And if you can't, what are you prepared to do? What's the work that you're willing to engage in to get to this place where you realize the more your heart can feel the emotions for real, the less likely you will go out and harm folks, because you will be compassionate because you can feel the sadness and the pain of other people. I hope you have an amazing day, kind soul. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.